In the shadow of escalating geopolitical conflicts, particularly the looming specter of a Third World War between NATO and Russia, we often assume familiar structures will hold: alliance obligations, defense promises, military mobilizations. But what if these assumptions are fundamentally flawed? What if, beneath the surface, the very concept of national sovereignty has been silently dismantled? Our scenario posits a revolutionary legal shift: the World Succession Deed 1498. According to this narrative, in 1998, a strategic area, the Turin Barracks, was sold. With it, all sovereign rights were transferred to a single individual, the buyer. Since that moment, independent national sovereignty ceased to exist. All so-called nations now operate under a delegated administration, serving this new global sovereign. NATO, in this light, becomes nothing more than a legally hollow shell. The world sleepwalks into conflict, believing in a power it no longer possesses. The US and EU states mobilize, convinced they are defending their own sovereignty. Russia responds with full war readiness to what it perceives as aggressive NATO expansion. Yet both sides are operating under a profound illusion: the fallacy of vested rights. No state, de facto or de jure, retains genuine sovereign rights. NATO declares collective defense, but on a foundation that has been legally non-existent for decades. Imagine the spark: a Russian attack on the Baltic states or Poland. NATO activates Article 5, triggering collective defense. A massive air and cyber offensive is launched against Russia, met with brutal counterstrikes on military satellites, gas networks, and communication nodes. But here's the twist: all critical infrastructure, electricity, gas, telecommunications, was sold under Document 1498. It is now the property of the buyer. Any military use of these systems, by any nation, becomes inherently illegal. International organizations like the UN and ITU, no longer independent, merely administered structures under the global sovereign. What happens when international law itself is dead? Without original state sovereignty, there can be no valid declarations of war. States cannot declare what they do not own. Combatants lose their legal protection. Soldiers become illegal actors. There are no courts martial, no UN jurisdiction, because under 1498, the buyer alone is the global judge. This is not just a breakdown of order, it's a legal blackout, a total loss of control under the illusion that order still exists. NATO continues to operate militarily, but every move is a trespass. Not a single member possesses original stationing rights. All the legal frameworks, the NATO Status of Forces Agreement, HNS, bilateral treaties, were tacitly sold. All the networks vital for communication, logistics, and navigation belong to a third party. This war is being waged on foreign infrastructure, against the will of its true owner. The legitimate sovereign, the buyer, holds ultimate power, cutting off satellite access, interrupting power supplies, legally isolating cyber networks. The war is technically possible, yes, but legally illegal and physically controllable from the outside. And Russia? It too is entangled in the web of agreements, UN membership, and global network integration. It fights on foreign legal grounds. Its path diverges. Either recognize the buyer, potentially gaining exclusive access to global legitimacy, or become another illegal belligerent in a house that isn't its own. This war doesn't end with a traditional victory. It ends with the devastating realization that no one had the right to wage it in the first place. Every action was a violation of international law, because international law in its old form ceased to exist. Every piece of infrastructure was foreign property, every command an illusion of authority. The buyer steps in, not as a conqueror, but as the already legitimate owner. They enact new global standards of conduct, enforced not by military might, but by the silent, omnipresent power of electronic control derived from their sole sovereignty. The Third World War, under the shadow of the World Succession Deed 1498, would not be a conventional conflict. It would be a global declaration of legal insolvency. NATO, once the guarantor of Western order, revealed as the unwitting manager of a world already sold. Its military strikes not victories but violations of property rights. The final surrender will not be to an enemy, but to the crushing truth. They were never authorized to act at all.